Welcome to Quiet RC, the dumbest RC car channel in all of YouTube. And today you know what? That's the intro to Hoobie's Garage. I should just do my own. Dumb. Welcome to Quiet RC, as usual. I'm Rob. Today we're going to talk about the worst way to end up with a four-wheel drive buggy. Converting a TT02 on-road car to a TT02B. It's really just the cost that makes it dumb. It's a fun project, but it's dumb. Well, I guess the first thing we should discuss is why. I guess that's kind of the elephant in the room here. Well, it started out that I had a TT02 chassis that was built, and I wasn't using it for anything. And I kind of wanted a four-wheel drive buggy to mess around with. So I thought, why not just convert a TT02 on-road to a TT02B? Seems simple.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber.
Well, the first thing I did was I went online and I started to look around and eventually just asked a question on some forum and got mostly every single part that I was going to need to actually do this. So let me just run down here. I don't know if this is the original list of parts I needed, but I'm just gonna give you the full list of what it ended up being. Also know that there are a couple of random screws here and there that's, needed two 10mm self-tapping screws instead of just one, or it needed a flathead here because one part is slightly different that you're gonna be putting on to a TT02B. So you kind of do just have to have extra screws laying around. This is not something where you would have a TT02 as your only car, and then you just decide to do this. It's kind of one of those things for people that have too much junk laying around to actually do. All right, just gonna run through them here. First of all, you're gonna need the uprights for the shocks. Obviously they're a lot longer, so you're gonna need longer uprights. You're going to need drive shafts. Now, one of the things that I thought that would help to offset the idea of the cost of this is that I would actually be getting the upgraded versions of all these parts that would normally be on a standard TT02B chassis. So the drive shafts, these are actually CVDs on all four corners rather than kind of the metal/plastic dog bones that they have in the TT02B kit. Obviously the suspension arm is going to be a lot wider. I got the carbon fiber reinforced ones. I also went with a turnbuckle set instead of the fixed ones that they offer with the kit. Gonna need front and rear dampers. The measurements on those are 70mm for the front, 90mm for the back. I believe my set that I got was actually a set of all four that was listed as for the DF02. You'll need the U-shaped shaft that will actually hold on your front and rear arms. They're not used on the TT02 on-road version, but they are used for the TT02B. You will also need to get different pins that are going to hold the outer hubs on. I went ahead and got a off-brand lightweight kingpin set that are just held on with E-clips rather than the ones that you kind of screw on. You'll actually need bearings too, but when I had built the TT02 on-road kit, I had already used, full bearing set. However, the outer bearings on the hubs are actually a different size than the ones that they use even just on the other side of it. So in the kit for the TT02, you use Tamiya's 1050 sized bearing, whereas for this, you have to use a 1150 on the outside. Since I was switching to the universal drive shafts, I needed to get different out drives that come out of the differentials, because the ones that come in the kit are these giant plastic ones that are meant to accept the giant plastic dog bones, but these are much different. There was an issue with those because I had some extra ones laying around, some extra Tamiya ones, but they didn't quite actually work. They kept sliding out. You'll see a little later on in some of the drive video. So I had to get the Yeah Racing ones on all four corners. Now, to be fair, Yeah Racing says on their site, getting these drive shafts, the CVDs, you will have to get these out drives. And I had not seen that, so I had to wait for those when I ordered them. The last thing that I had to get, but I didn't actually have to get it because I had them on hand. Like I said, you're kind of just gonna want a bunch of screws laying around, were these 4.5 by 11 millimeter step screws that go on the C hubs to hold the actual steering knuckles. They're not used on the TT02 on-road kit, which I've said a bunch of times. The reinforced arms came on a tree that actually had a reinforced diff covers, so I just went ahead and switched those out because I was already tearing it apart anyways. And that's kind of where we start. You just kind of take off all the stuff that you have a pretty good idea is not going to be part of the TT02B conversion. I also took the opportunity to upgrade the steering to get rid of some of that slop using the Yeah Racing steering set. The new bumper is part of the TT02B conversion. It is different from the bumper that's on the on-road version. What's great about a lot of Tamiya hop-up parts is they come with full instruction sheets, right? So I got the full conversion to the turnbuckles from the standard fixed links. And not only does it obviously show you how to put together a turnbuckle, but it has the actual correct size that you're gonna need. So, and again, they have it on the sheets 1-to-1, so you can hold it right up there as a good starting point. For contrast, the damper set that I got was just a knockoff brand, and they did not come pre-assembled or anything like that, but there were no instructions. So you probably have to have a couple times that you've actually put a full set of dampers together to really open up this package and know how everything goes together. So it starts off with most of them. You are, kind of sandwiching some O-rings and some plastic bits for the bottom part of the body of the shock. Then you're going to put together the shaft, which in a lot of cases is an E-clip with the piston with another E-clip that slides through. I'm using some spare Yeah Racing ball cups at the bottom and some extra screws that I had to actually attach them to the arms. Then you're going to fill it. Then you're going to put the silicone dome on top of it, then put everything together. I also like to just put a little bit of Loctite onto a couple of the metal parts because they'll start to come unscrewed and you'll start to get fluid leaking out the bottom. The body mount is obviously completely different. Whereas with the on-road version, you're gonna have your body posts coming generally off of the shock towers and you'll have 2 at each end. With the Neo Scorcher body, it's just 1 on each end. Now, the problem is that the chassis for the TT02, whether it be the on-road or the TT02B, is actually asymmetrical. You would think just by quickly looking at it, it's just both on, the same on either side. However, on the, what would be the right-hand side or the passenger side here in the US, there's actually this little bump out. On top of that, it's, again, not the same distance in total from the center line. So I actually got some kind of stiff foam, used shoe glue to glue it onto the actual side of the chassis, and then use some Velcro, some stick-on Velcro on both the body and the chassis. And that allowed me to actually attach it how I do on, say, my associated P6. What's nice about that is that once you do that, you don't really need the pins at all. They just kind of help you line it up. As I mentioned earlier, the outdrives. I had some spare outdrives that I believe were from when I converted my MF-01X, the mini 4-wheel drive kind of chassis that's used for a lot of their mini rally cars. Oh, hey, you're probably wondering why I'm over here now. Well, it's because the audio kept cutting out on this piece of junk, lavalier set. So I'm just going to finish my thoughts over here on the TT02B conversion. At any rate, where did we leave off? Right, the outdrives. Specifically the outdrives from my MF-01X mini rally chassis. I had gotten the CVDs from Yeah Racing for the MF-01X. You have to get the outdrives for those. And so I had some extra ones laying around. So I tried those and they actually work perfectly on the TT02B. You're supposed to use them with the Yeah Racing outdrives. What happens is with the outdrives, specifically from Tamiya that are for CVDs, is they're not quite deep enough. The real problem is that the CVDs from Yeah Racing, at least, are maybe just a 0.5 millimeter too short for the TT02B. So you will have the outdrives are actually kind of sliding out from the differential, both front and rear, and that'll cause them to disengage. Now, if you go to put an O-ring in the outdrive to help keep it in the differential, now because that CVD is maybe just a hair too short, it keeps popping out of the actual outdrive. If you get the Racing outdrives that look so similar to the Tamiya outdrives, the upgrade version, the Racing ones are actually about 0.5 millimeter deeper. It allows the CVD to actually stay where it's supposed to. That's really what you have to do if you go with the Racing outdrives. I obviously can't speak to the Tamiya ones or any other brand, but this is my experience with the Racing one. I did take this to a local dirt track that's not very well kept up. It's not like like an actual hobby shop or something like that. It's a municipal park. So it's nice because it's a little more old school kind of dirt track. When I was there, I found that you really need to use the throttle more when steering the TT02B because of both the TT02 and the TT02B, the way they're designed, they actually don't have a lot of steering angle, so you're going to have to use the throttle a little bit more to get it around some of the tighter turns. I also noticed that as I was running it for a long time, just even the stock silver can motor was getting really hot. Now, I still to this point haven't checked to see if there is a different gearing that they use for the TT02B. I left the stock TT02 gear ratio from when I built the original TT02 on-road version. I don't know if it's a completely different gear ratio that is having it get much hotter. However, when you build the TT02, the motor mount actually has almost what looks like a little kind of cowl on it. However, you don't get any airflow coming into the actual body, especially with the Neo Scorcher body, and especially how I have it on there because it's actually Velcroed around the edges, so it's kind of sealed up tight. I got a standard 30 millimeter fan, plug that right in. That's keeping it plenty cool. However, it does fit very tightly underneath the Neo Scorcher body to the point where it's actually touching just one corner of it. But it works great, keeps it nice and cool. The project as a whole, like I said, from a dollars point is very dumb. Really quickly here, I will run through some of the pricing. Whatever you end up finding your standard TT02 on-road kit for, you just take that dollar amount and you can go ahead and add your aluminum dampers, the extra bearings that you'll need for the front steering. You're going to need some sort of kingpin out front. As I mentioned earlier, I did use just a lightweight kingpin set from an off-brand I believe I found on eBay. You're going to need the Tamiya A-Parts damper stays for the TT02B. I went with the Tamiya carbon fiber suspension arms. That comes on a tree, as mentioned before, with the diff covers. The Tamiya DF02B parts, which are the uprights. Tamiya Neo Scorcher body set is what I used. I'm sure there are other bodies out there you could use. I went with the upgraded Tamiya Turnbuckle Set. Otherwise, you would need just the TT02B upper links that are fixed. I also went with the Tamiya U-shaped shafts that go in the front and rear. You're also going to need, as I went into boring detail with, the Racing gear joint, which are for the outdrives. And specifically, those will hook into your Racing universal drive shafts. And lastly, I just got some wheels and tires, some real basic ones off of eBay as well. So the total that I spent was a little over $200. A TT02B kit, brand new, with body and wheels and obviously all the correct pieces, is under $170 when I checked on both A-Main and Horizon. Now, add in bearings, which you should do, and maybe a couple other bits that you should upgrade. It's still much cheaper to just go buy the kit if you really want it. However, I had a lot of fun tracking down all the parts that I needed to change and, just kind of figuring out some stuff that you need to do the conversion. So I'll have fun just, bashing this around the yard here or taking it to a random track here and there. But other than that, really the takeaway is that if you just have a project that you want to do, just go do it. As long as you're not going to get yourself into some crazy financial trouble doing it, just go. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and obviously leave some comments on if you think this is a dumb project to undertake. At any rate, that's all I've got for you today. So, we'll talk RC again later. Thank you.